Welcome. Yeah. Apology to those who are viewing. This is the first live stream event on Adam's channel. I have Adam in the background. I'm just we're just testing at this point in time, and what I'll do is I'll bring in and we are now live, and what is it, good evening or good morning to you, Alan, down there on the Grand Cayman.
Thank you, David. It's still the evening. It's 10:59 at night, almost 11 o'clock. And yes, we're still up and we're still here watching Tropical Storm Frank as it starts to make its way onshore, or is in the process of continuing onshore. The eye has not yet, or isn't just about ready to make landfall. The rest of the western half of the system has already went through the Yucatan and Belize, impacting also areas further in the Bay of Campeche, Guatemala, Honduras. Earlier throughout the day and last night, affected areas through Nicaragua, the Cayman Islands, parts of Cuba, and going even earlier, infecting the island of Jamaica and into the South Central Caribbean, the ABC Islands, the Eastern Caribbean starting off. But here we are now at its first landfall here, just in the southern regions of the Yucatan, just north of Belize. So yeah, there we go. The advisory that came out at 10 p.m. Central Daylight had it at 19.1 north, 87.3 west, or about 75 miles east-northeast of Chetumal, Mexico, or 75 miles south of Tila, Mexico. Max winds recorded were 60 miles per hour with higher gusts. Present movement west-northwest at 14. This movement has shifted a little bit further to the west from earlier movements, which was northwest. Pressure has dropped down to 995 bars. And of course, with this storm, there is definitely watches and warnings out there. The government of Mexico has issued a hurricane watch for the mainland of Mexico from Puerto de Veracruz northwards to Rio Panuco, or Pancuo. If I'm pronouncing that right. Tropical storm warning has been extended southwards from Campeche to San Buque, and tropical storm watch has been issued west of San Buque east of Puerto de Veracruz. The hurricane watch for the east coast of the Yucatan Peninsula has been discontinued, as likelihood of seeing this turn into a full-fledged hurricane is only, say, minutes or an hour away from not occurring. As it is, the system is on its final approach to landfall. Of course, there are recorded of higher gusty winds within the stronger bands in here, so they could get up to upper end tropical storm very weekend 75 mile per hour gust could be possible still as the system moves across the Yucatan. So just going over here, the forecasted cone for Franklin. Let's see what Franklin does after it has made landfall and where it will be going. Franklin will continue on its more west-northwesterly course across the Yucatan and across through the Bay of Campeche, eventually making landfall across the mainland Mexico. Again, this is expected to ramp up to hurricane. One thing we do know here is that storms are notorious in this region here to really ramp up, kind of known as the Campeche spin bowl effect. You also have a similar type thing that can occur up along here in Florida and along here in Texas. The curvature of the land can help with spinning up storms very quickly. And this may be the case for Franklin as it moves into the Bay of Campeche, that it would, the flow would help to spin it up even more. And also with the warm sea surface temperatures in the Gulf of Mexico, that will assist it as well. So again, tropical storm conditions already be affecting the areas inland already, and will continue to do so as it moves on this west-northwesterly course, and then eventually more to the west once we get into the bay. So the image that we did start off from would be the brand new GOES 16 satellite imagery, which will eventually later on this year be standardized as the GOES East, and we'll be covering tropical systems with that from later this year onwards. So it'll be great to have that on board. That'll help with the forecasting and analysis of these systems and get them better. Here is the standard GOES East at this point in time. This will eventually be phased out later. But again, nevertheless, you can see how sort of well-structured this storm is. It has come down a bit in terms of the convective mass. The convective mass isn't as big and mass covering as it was earlier today. However, there is this strong burst of convection building up on the east side of the system, and this would be very concerning, as a good portion of the heaviest, roughest stuff would be along in here as well. So even after the system makes landfall, as that continues onwards, the heavier weather wouldn't come until after the system has made landfall. So, you know, people would along the area would say, "Oh, the ice come over now. The worst of it's more or less gone." Well, no. Even without this being there, you still got the second half system. But first half of the system, not so bad. The center of the system, not so bad. You still got the east side, and that's going to be the one with all the trouble in it. So the thing you got to look out for also on the northeastern tip of the Yucatan would be for some storm surge action, as it is the flow would be coming in strong inshore along here. So storm surge action is expected to be the highest on this side. Not so much down here, as the wind flow is more like that. So it'd be pushing the waves outwards, out to sea, rather than in towards land. as the northern section would be doing. Yep. So we'll be watching this further as the night progresses and as this storm makes landfall, and we'll continue to monitor. Here's the surface observations coming out of the area. This is from Weather Underground, and you can definitely see where the circulation of the system is. You have that east to southeast winds, and coming on the north side, those westerly winds coming in here through Belize. And of course, that west-northwest wind coming out of Chetumal. The offshore buoy here from the Yucatan, bringing up that south wind, and definitely a bit stronger than what good portion of these observations here across the Yucatan and Belize is picking up. Again, this bit would be the area with the strongest amount of activity. So as that moves on forwards, that will be the areas getting the worst. So as going forward, it would be areas such as Felipe, Carlo, Porto, up here, San Miguel, Puerto Morelos, Cancun. Those areas will be the areas next up for getting the really heavy stuff as this thing pushes on shore. And of course, for Punta Gorda and areas much further south of Belize City, would be getting the tail end of the span, which would be providing some of the heavier stuff as well for there, and cutting across through parts of the northern coast of Honduras as this storm pushes onwards. I believe David has provided us with some radar imagery coming out of Belize, where you could clearly see the center of circulation go forward.
It's now
and
on
sorry,
Adam, the radar is now on the screen, and would you agree with me that it has made landfall?
Looking on the satellite imagery as well, it would appear that it has indeed made a landfall. Just waiting for the official confirmation by the National Hurricane Center that is indeed the case. But yes, again, looking on the satellite imagery, that looks like it has been the case. Hold on, just getting it here. Yes, so I do have confirmation now. Tropical Storm Franklin has made landfall along the east coast of the Yucatan Peninsula. High resolution image from GOES 16 satellite imagery, along with radar image from Belize, indicates that the center of Tropical Storm Franklin has made landfall near Pulp Club, Mexico, approximately 10:45 p.m. Central Daylight Time. Max winds are sustained at 60. So that put the position, the 11 p.m. position, again, 19.1, 87.5, 15 miles south-southwest of Punta Hero, Mexico, or 25 miles northeast of Puerto Costa Maya. Still moving at west-northwest, 300 degrees at 14 miles per hour. Minimum central pressure is still 995 millibars. Just another thing to take note of as we see here, and on the satellite imagery here, that as the eye pushes onshore, seems to be that nice burst of heavier convection is flaring up as this makes landfall. And with system making landfall, you do get the land friction occurring, which will bump up the winds in the system as it does make landfall. So higher gusts again expected, and especially in areas of the heaviest bursts of convection, you will get that really windy, stormy conditions along those areas. So that would be needed to watch. So again, the area of Culture Club, Mexico, and areas in and around that area would need to watch out, even though that relative calm of the eye is there. Just as you get to the eastern part of that eye wall, there's a big, nice little convective mass heading towards you, and that will bring you some heavier weather once you are out of the eye and on the eastern side of the eye wall. So, just besides me and David here, we also have Lee here as well in the background. Hey Lee, how are you?
So I don't have it. I'm fine.
Good.
Sort of fine.
Yep. So, from the both of you, any comments on what we've been watching over the past couple of days, and watching how Franklin had progressed, and watching
I think Franklin has still got another surprise up its sleeve. I think it's going to weaken a bit while it's over the land, but I think once it goes into I can't remember what the name of that bay is in the Gulf of Mexico there, but I think it's going to intensify up to a hurricane for sure once it crosses into that bay there and heads towards mainland Mexico. Sorry, Adam, I don't know the name of the bay.
That's the Bay of Campeche there.
Is it? Right. Well, yep. I think it will turn into a hurricane definitely as it approaches Mexico. And I'm going to mention this very briefly. I know it's not part of the event, but I do also think 99L also has potential to develop further down the line as well. And I think that one could become a hurricane further down the line. But anyway, back to the topic at hand, Franklin. Back to you.
Yeah. Just also just going on to mention about that, we do have another tropical disturbance out in the main development region, Invest Area 99L. At the moment in time, it's not doing too great. It is still an area of low pressure, and it does have area of convection. At the moment in time, it's not doing too great, and it's expected to remain on the down low for a few days, possibly picking up later as we go on through this week. I'll have other updates coming out probably later tonight or tomorrow, and we'll also be having that system in those discussions. But again, the main event at hand is Tropical Storm Franklin. Just popping up here, I'm not sure how well you guys can see this, but Franklin is in a very well of warm sea surface temperatures, 30-degree waters, which extend throughout this whole entire area here as it's moving through, even some areas of 31 degrees in the Cayman Basin, as well as some 31s popping up around here, and even in parts of the Bay of Campeche and the Gulf of Mexico, even some 32s as well are popping up. And this is going to be very important for when Franklin comes off of the Yucatan Basin and moves through the Bay of Campeche. You know, even though that, okay, waters off here are generally 30, with waters here being 31, this system is expected to weaken as it moves across, but as it comes back off and heads back into that warm water, it will re-intensify. And again, once it gets into that even warmer water, it will likely intensify even more and definitely become possibly the first hurricane of the 2017 season.
I'm going to interrupt real quick. I am going to head off now since it's very late. But it's been great being a part of this live stream this evening. I am in Scotland, everybody, so I will be heading for sleep. So, anyway, good night, folks. Good night, David.
Good night, and thank you for being here. Adam, currently on the screen is the latest shear tendency. I did mention in our previous update that tropical storm Franklin is in a very good shear tendency. The blues, quite a bit of green, so nothing impacting the system. That's a shear tendency. And Adam, have you got any other screen that you can bring up? If not, I'll
I'm presently working on some at the moment, but again, continuing on from what you were saying there, David, you know, the upper level winds on this system is fairly decent. You know, definitely not much in the way of very high wind shear or anything, but one thing that is definitely going for the system is the outflow of the system, as we've seen on the satellite imagery, with the clouds being blown in all directions around the system. Very good outflow for the system. Nothing really there to impede the system at all, very much. You know, it's going quite well. And, you know, it's one of those things, you know, when you have the very favorable upper level winds and you have high sea surface temperatures and you got a system out there, there's not really that much in the way. I mean, if there wasn't any land to really interact with, then, you know, it could blow up into something really, really impressive. Again, if the Yucatan wasn't there, then this thing would probably be a hurricane at this point, and be quickly intensifying as it heads towards Mexico, or the mainland, western part of Mexico, should I say. But looking on, going on from that, looking on the vorticity charts, very, very good vorticity, very strong spin with this system. And there's no doubt in that. I mean, even looking on the satellite imagery, definitely see the big, beautiful spin that is this storm. Yeah, so what I will do here is that I'm going to bring up the model runs for Franklin. Just to give you an idea of where this thing will be going after the Yucatan, and we'll discuss further on possibilities there. Okay, so I believe I have those models up, David.
Yes,
will you
and I just
right.
I just brought up on the screen the 850 millibar vorticity, and we're now looking at the tracks.
Right. So these are the model tracks provided by my friend Levi Cowan over there at Tropical Tibbets. I remember that guy from when he was doing stuff on Weather Underground, and went on further on his own website. He's making all these beautiful, awesome graphics. So Levi, if you're out there, thanks a lot, mate. Keep up the good work. But here we go with Tropical Storm Franklin's. Again, the forecast is fairly straightforward for the next 24 hours or so, crossing west-northwest through the Yucatan Basin, ending up into the Bay of Campeche, and then a general westwards turn towards that mainland Mexico, and then landfall somewhere along the Veracruz area, if I remember that correctly. Yeah, and that's expected within the next few days, day or two, or in the second day to third day, 48 hours, 72 hours out. So yeah, by this time tomorrow, the storm would be somewhere out over the eastern Bay of Campeche. By this time on Wednesday, should be getting ready for another landfall. And as such, we'd be possibly looking at a hurricane somewhere within this area. So, okay, what may it do, say, after landfall? Well, as it is, there are some models that do show this thing sort of surviving and moving on into the eastern Pacific. I'll tell you why there could be a couple of things where that won't happen. One, you got the, I believe it's called the Sierra Madre mountain range that is along this area here. I believe that's right. So the mountain ranges here, as the system moves forward, will get itself pretty destroyed by the system as it moves across. If it just so happens that you get a strong enough hurricane making landfall here, it may survive enough that when it does crosses the mountain, doesn't rapidly dissipate the system altogether. It may weaken to a sort of remnant low and maybe sort of pick up a little bit along here. I don't really see too much in the way of seeing development continue once it does get into the Pacific Basin, as the sort of Pacific Basin as a whole not really that favorable for development. There are a few things going for it, but there's a lot of other things that aren't really going so well for the system. Here, we're just going back for another quick view here with the GHOST 16 satellite imagery, as it is confirming the landfall of Franklin into Mexico. You could definitely see here the eye of the system here sort of heading in towards land just before the convective mass starts building back over the eye again. And again, areas here would be starting to receive some fairly gnarly weather, fairly bad weather as this thing continues going through. And of course, for areas around the northeastern tip of the Yucatan, Cozumel, uh, Cancun area, all this area will start to get the worser, deteriorating effects of the system as this big part of the band here starts to move towards land. Yep.
And whilst Adam is focusing on the screen content, Tropical Storm Franklin is expected to make landfall on the east coast of the Yucatan Peninsula, possibly now. And what are your thoughts on that, Adam?
What's that?
Do you think that Franklin has now made landfall, or shortly?
No, it has indeed made landfall. It has indeed. The exact landfall location, as if satellite imagery is still up, right about there, which, as National Hurricane Center had pointed out, that looking on this very satellite imagery, the GOES 16, that it has indeed made landfall. Just bringing that information up again, just to repeat the information.
Adam, looking at that flight, the view, is that Franklin, that real small? Yes, it is. You can actually see it now on land, and then you've got that massive cloud burst from the north through east to south, but you can definitely see Franklin on the land, or 3/4 on the land.
This here is pretty much Franklin. The main core of Franklin being this here. You got the heavier rain band of Franklin that extends down through here across Honduras into Guatemala, Belize, and extending even further out already through parts of the Bay of Campeche here. And there is your band with, of course, the core of the system that has made landfall. But there is still plenty more of the system left after landfall. So even though, I caution people, even though that this system has made landfall, the rest of the system has still yet to come across. And frankly, the more heavier deteriorating side of the system has still yet to approach land. So just again, repeating from the National Hurricane Center, Franklin makes landfall along the east coast of the Yucatan. That GOES 16, along with radar imagery from Belize, indicates center of Franklin made landfall near Pulte Club, Mexico, approximately 10:45 p.m. Central Daylight Time. So the summary of information for the 11 p.m. Central Daylight Time advisory is 19.1, 87.5, or about 15 miles south-southwest of Punta Hierro, Mexico, or about 25 miles north-northeast of Puerto Costa Maya, Mexico. And again, winds are still around 60 miles per hour. Present movement west-northwest 14, and minimum central pressure 995 millibars. So, David, have anything to add at this point in time?
Flooding going to be a issue, and just recapping, Tropical Storm Franklin is currently moving west-north-west at 14 miles per hour. Minimum pressure 995 millibars, and sustained wind is 60 miles per hour. And did Franklin have a eye?
Yes, indeed, Franklin has an eye. The eye is currently being slightly covered up by a blow-up of convection as the storm makes landfall. And to answer previous question, yes, there are some risk with flooding as well as storm surge and obviously wind. Just going over the details on those. Rainfall amounts of 3 to 6 inches, isolated amounts of a foot possible across the Yucatan Peninsula and Belize through all the way through till Wednesday, with the highest amounts over the Mexican state of Quintana Roo. These rains could produce life-threatening flash floods. And also, again, coming in with this, the storm surge is an issue. Dangerous storm surge will raise the water levels by as much as 2 to 4 feet above the normal tide along the immediate coast and to the north of where the center makes landfall. So again, that onshore flow on the north side of the system will really push those water levels much higher. So, the surge will be accompanied by large and destructive waves. And again, the tropical storm conditions are occurring over the eastern coast of the Yucatan Peninsula, and this will continue to spread westwards throughout the remainder of the evening and continuing on overnight through Tuesday, and of course the with the watches and warnings up, the tropical storm conditions are expected within those areas.
Well, I've just brought quickly onto the screen an upper level divergence. Yesterday it was pretty strong, up around 40 knots, but it's now dropped 10 knots and it's between 10 to 20. So that's the upper level divergence. And whilst I have this on the screen, with Franklin now officially making landfall in Mexico, and the first landfall on the Caribbean side of the Mexican, eastern region. When was the last time a tropical system made landfall on the Yucatan Peninsula?
Well, if you don't necessarily count earlier this year's tropical storm Cindy, which did have impacts on the Yucatan Peninsula, if you exclude that, you would have to look for last year, if you remember, Hurricane Earl, which very similarly formed in the Western Caribbean and moved in a general similar track to this, made landfall a little bit further to the south near Belize, also popped out in the Bay of Campeche before making landfall and crossing into mainland Mexico. There was that, as well as Ernesto of 2012 that did a similar sort of thing. And these two storms, I think, would be considered the uh, two of the top analogs for this system. So if we go back remembering on what those systems had done, we do remember that, even with last year's Earl, uh, besides the obvious direct impacts, rainfall across Mexico was a big, big issue even after the system made its second landfall and was weakening across Mexico. The heavy rainfall caused a lot of issues over there. And this will likely probably do the same.
Adam, I have on the screen the radar from the Philip Golson Airport. I think it's the 250 kilometre, and there's not much to see in the last few frames. There's a bit of rain activity offshore, but it's mainly north through west to south. So can we see it being reduced by the the hurricane, National Hurricane Centre? Apology, viewers, I'm over here on the east coast of Australia and I'm on a learning curve, but could we see it come down below tropical storm status to a tropical depression and then reform once it gets over the peninsula?
There's always a possibility of that, but at this point, that possibility is quite low. The system is quite still a strong system, and the heavier stuff is still offshore, still away from a good portion of the radar picking it up, and you'll probably see it more and more as time goes forward. And again, as I've mentioned, even though the storm has made landfall, there's still quite a bit still offshore yet to come onshore, and it may be yet a couple hours before that does make impact. And again, 60-mile-an-hour tropical storm. It's very well structurally organized, despite the slight decreases in convection of recently, the thunderstorm buildup of recently. It's not like this is a weak system and it's not well organized and the circulation is weak. That's not the case with this system, and because of that, it's not gonna rapidly weaken to a depression or a remnant low before the time it reaches back over to open waters, which is expected to be tomorrow evening. It should be offshore just a little bit before 7 p.m. tomorrow. And the other thing to take note of is the land mass over the Yucatan Peninsula is not very high. There's not really much of any high mountainous areas along that area. And that will be something that will actually help the system sustain itself longer. Unlike over further to the west in that more central main part of Mexico, where you've got those very high mountains, that will definitely rip up the system. Over the Yucatan, it's relatively flat with more higher elevations as you get further deeper inland and further to the south. This would probably catch a little bit of that extreme northern edge of where that rise is in the land, but it won't be enough to really, put a big dent into the system.
And considering my location, Adam, looks like I have a developing system over there in the South Indian Ocean, right over to the rest of Australia. Just viewed a satellite image, and it is a nice and possibly expanding spot, and low pressure system 1005 millibars. And this is the Cayman Hurricane Centre, where live broadcasting the movement of tropical storm Franklin. Host is Adam down there on the Grand Cayman, and for me, David, as mentioned earlier, east coast of Australia, and it's good to be here with Adam and doing the technical operation. So, yes. Adam, what else do you have that you'd like to bring up?
I am presently working on something just now.
Alright, well, while you do that, I will... you want me to go back to the radar, or you want to stay
sure, throw on the radar.
Alright, we'll bring up the radar again. And this is the 250 kilometer loop.
David, see if you could throw that out to 400. 400, get a much more wider.
Right.
Yeah. And also, guys, if you have any questions, comments, please throw them out there. I'm willing to take any questions, comments, anything you want to throw out there for us. And yeah, just let us know on hey, how we're going with this. As it is our first ever live stream for the Cayman Hurricane Center page, and yeah, so far we haven't made any major crashes or anything, so that's good.
And what I will say, what I'll say to that is that, as Adam said, this is our first live stream. This is my first live stream, and it is challenging. Currently on the screen is the 400 kilometer loop of Franklin, and the highlights should be, or the stream should automatically go on to the channel. If not, I am currently recording it as part of the broadcasting side of the operation, and not much one can say about the radar. Adam, where do you think the 6 to 12 inches of 12 inches of rain is going to fall?
Oh, that would definitely be on, if you remember on the satellite imagery that I posted, that heavier band that's still quite a bit off to the east. That's where likely the heaviest of the rainfall would be, and also, if you think about it as well, with the onflow of the system, as you get the system moving across land, and especially on that northern area of where the lip in the land starts, you'll start to get a lot of the rain being forced onto the rises in that land. You'll start to get that really heavy stuff coming across through there. So again, as I've mentioned, with this system, with the core of the system making landfall now, the back half of the system is still yet to come, and that back half is what has all the heavier stuff to it. So if you're out there now in the Yucatan and Belize and in that general area of Mexico, and you're wondering, hey, where in the world is this system? Well, got to remember that still system has made landfall, but the heaviest of it is still to the east of the center and still yet to make landfall. The heaviest of conditions, that is.
And the moisture is going to come in from what direction? The northeast?
Well, as it is, the so from north of where the center made landfall, so basically anything from the tip of the Yucatan to right where I said that location was at where was it? 19 North, 87 5 or somewhere thereabout. From north of that location to the tip of the Yucatan, that is where that heaviest bit will start to come through.
When's the next NHC update?
The next NHC update should be out by about 1 a.m. Central Daylight Time. That is when the intermediary advisory comes out. So from there, we'll get track position and apologies for that.
One never knows without them when the phone goes off. But the Joint Typhoon Warning Centre is reporting 18-foot waves. This is their latest advisory. And Adam, they have on the 10th 00 Zulu, winds 65 knots, gusting to 80. Then on
That's for
Franklin. Then 24 hours later, which makes it the same time period, dropping to 30 knots, gusting 40.
Yeah, the system is expected to weaken some, not exactly to tropical depression intensity, but to a weak tropical storm, and then from there it will likely move further off land. So just giving you the details in terms of the winds and where things will be. It's forecasted next 12 hours weaken down to about 45 miles per hour. The next 24 hours start to re-strengthen back up to 50 as it's back over the open water of the Bay of Campeche. And then over the next 36 to 48 hours, re-strengthen to and strengthen further up to Cat 1 hurricane strength. And then looking at landfall again into Mexico by the time we reach, at that time after landfall should be down to 35 knots, tropical depression and weakening.
Right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up a 1 kilometre visible and storm loop, which will show the life of hang on, I think we've hang on, we'll be back in a few minutes.